Hello everyone, it's Meg and today I'm going to be recommending some historical fiction books. I have some very exciting books to share with you guys today. Some of these books are standalones, some of them are written by the same authors. I actually really enjoyed all of these, to be honest with you. I have obviously ones that I prefer more than others, and I have a mixture of adult and young adults as well. I'm very excited to share these books with you guys as historical fiction is a genre that I started to get back into in 2019, I believe, thanks to Laura Wood, and you can obviously, she is on this list, obviously. So since then, since reading her books, I've kind of delved into this genre more, and I have found some really wonderful books, and I hope you guys may find a wonderful book if you are looking to try out historical fiction for the first time, if you are a newbie, or if you already love historical fiction, you would like some more recommendations. I hope you might find something in this video that you will enjoy. So without further ado, let's get into the video. So like I said before at the beginning of the video, I got into historical fiction through Laura Wood, and if you don't know who she is a UK YA and middle grade author, and obviously her books have to be, like, you know, talked about in this video because she's the reason why I got into historical fiction in the first place. And she currently has 3 YA books out, and her debut, which is A Sky Painted Gold, then she has Under a Dancing Star and A Snowfall of Silver. And apart from the beautiful covers, these books are all set in the 1920s and 30s, so kind of that Great Gatsby era, just before the Second World War broke out. And these are absolutely delightful stories. If you are like a newbie when it comes to picking up historical fiction, I definitely recommend these, probably maybe some of the most out of all of the recommendations that I'm going to share with you guys. They are just so utterly charming. These are mainly marketed as romances, but there is so much more to these than that, as these are about young women trying to find their way in the world at a time where obviously they were still expected to kind of stay at home and look after children and all that sort of thing. It wasn't very proper for a woman to kind of go out and have a career instead of settling down for marriage. So it's about all these young women who have big ambitions and just trying to find their place, and they do happen to find romance along the way, but you get sucked into these worlds so easily. Laura's second and third book are actually companions, and then her middle one is a standalone, but they are so utterly charming. I've talked about them so many times before. They're just so immersive. Like, these books are like a hug. If you want a book that's going to make you feel good, with some really charming characters and just some really lovely relationships in here, whether it's like friendships, family, romantic relationships, they're just so utterly charming. I'm not going to talk about them too much. I feel like I've said charming quite a few times as well. But I just adore these books with my whole entire being. I honestly, they are my favourite, or nearly, like, apart from one of them, they are like my favourite on this list for obvious reasons. So obviously if you're a newbie, or if you are just looking for more recommendations, I honestly highly recommend picking these up. And they're all set in the UK apart from the middle one, which is Under a Dancing Star, which is mainly set in Italy. And yeah, they are stunning. I absolutely adore them. Please go and read them. I say this every time I talk about her books, but they are so utterly wonderful and I cannot recommend them enough. So we're going to stick to the rest of the YA books that I have to recommend for you guys, and the next book that I have is Splinters of Scarlet by Emily Bain Murphy. And I've talked about this book a little bit. This is definitely a book that took me by surprise. I read it towards the end of last year. I got it in a subscription box and it sounded amazing. This has been compared to Laura Wood's books, which is why I chose the subscription box, because I love Laura Wood. And this, I think if you like Laura Wood's books, I think you definitely would like this book. It's very different in terms of kind of the context and the storyline, as this is set in Copenhagen in the 1900s. I think I get really mixed up between like my 18 and 1900s because my brain just doesn't grasp the concept of time apparently. But it's set in Copenhagen in the 1900s, I think, and it follows our main character called Marit, who is a dressmaker, and she's also an orphan, but she now lives in the dress shop that she works in, and she's not very happy there. And she has a friend who's a lot younger than her who still lives at the orphanage, and one day her friend gets adopted by a famous ballerina called Helen Vestergaard, and the Vestergaards have a complicated relationship with Marit. So Marit is a bit suspicious, so she gets a job with the Vestergaards so she can keep an eye on her friend, and there's all sorts of like magical mystery things that go on in this book. It's definitely like a mystery with magic. It's like a magical realism, mystery, historical fiction, and this like definitely gripped me straight away. There is magic in this book as Marit has magic, but this book definitely sucked me in straight away. I love the writing. It's just like Laura's writing. It's very immersive, and you really get to see the culture of Copenhagen with like all the food and kind of the atmosphere and the clothing that everybody wears, and it has you kept on the edge of your seats until the very end, because I am somebody who's very good at figuring out mysteries, and I could not figure out the mystery in this book at all. It kept me guessing, which is a very good thing, but honestly it's so much fun. If you're kind of looking for a historical fiction that's kind of has some slightly more magical elements in it and a really, really good mystery, like it's such a good mystery, and I'm not a mystery girl myself, but I really enjoyed it. I definitely recommend picking this up, and there's also a really cute romance in here as well. It's not like the main part of the story, but it is in here and I do very much enjoy it. And then next up we have Dangerous Alliance by Jenkins Cohen. I still don't know if I'm saying her first name right, so I'm really sorry if I am. But this is obviously another historical fiction, kind of inspired by Jane Austen, so it's like a very much ostentatious book. And it follows our main character called Victoria, or Vicky as she prefers to be known. I think this is in the 1800s. I'm not sure. This is set in the time that Jane Austen was alive, so just to give context for that. And she lives on her family estate with her parents, and she's very much a roughy-tufty kind of person. She's not afraid of helping out at the farm and kind of helping around the estate, kind of repairing things. And then one day her sister arrives home as her husband has been mistreating her. So basically Vicky is only 18 years old, so she has to go to London and basically go out into society to find a husband to save her family's estate. And this is another book that has a mystery in it as well, and it's a lot more action-packed than I was guessing, which I'm not mad about. I wasn't expecting it, but I wasn't mad about it. And Vicky really loves Jane Austen, so if you're a Jane Austen fan, I think you might like this, because it basically is set when the first 3 Jane Austen books are out. So she kind of tries to take references from Jane Austen and kind of the characters in her books to try and solve this mystery that is going on, as it's all very mysterious, obviously, because it's a mystery. And it is a very fun book, and I also really enjoyed it. There's a bit on the author's note at the back, and if you read this book, definitely recommend reading the author's notes, because it talks about marriage and divorce back in the time that this book was written, as a woman, when they were married, was basically property of a man, and getting a divorce was very difficult and nearly impossible for a woman. So it was just so interesting, and that was probably one of my favourite parts about it, like that historical aspect of kind of like marriage and divorce during the time of this book. So if you are a Jane Austen fan, I definitely recommend picking this book up, or even if you're not, if you're looking for again another kind of like historical fiction mystery book that's kind of set in the Jane Austen era, it's definitely a fun read and I do recommend it. Next book I have, I don't know if this is YA or adult, I think it's adult. Not that it really matters, to be perfectly honest, but the next book that I have is The Ringmaster's Daughter by Carly Shabowski. If you are a lover of circuses, I really think you will enjoy this book. This book is set in the 1940s, and it starts off in Paris, but the majority of the novel takes place in France when World War II has just broken out. And it follows our main character, again I don't know if it's Michael or Michelle, but we're going to call him Michael for the moment, and he basically escapes Paris just before the Nazis invade it, and he stows away on a train which happens to belong to his circus, and he starts working with this circus, looking after their horses, and he kind of gets to know the performers there and kind of the secrets that are behind the circus and why they are hiding from the Germans. And this book is not the typical book that I would go for, mainly for the fact that it's set in World War II, and I'm personally not a fan of reading books that are set in like the World Wars, even though I do happen to have 2 of them on this list. But I really enjoyed this book. The writing is very beautiful. I describe it as a beautiful book in general. Like, it's not so much about the war, obviously that is a part of the book because it is the setting, but it is about the characters and the stories behind them and how they ended up at the circus and why they are the way they are, and you get to know them so well and they are so wonderful. And it is, again, kind of marketed as a romance, but I'm not a huge fan of the romance. I feel like it's a little bit insta-lovey for me personally, but I did still enjoy it nonetheless. And there was a plot twist at the end that, honey, I was not expecting. So that definitely kept me on the edge of my seat. I read that during a live show at the beginning of the year and I was just like, oh my god, I was not expecting that. But honestly, if you're looking for a World War II book that is beautiful, like, honestly, beautiful is the word I would use to describe this book, that is beautiful, that is about stories and stories of people, and is obviously includes a circus, I really think you'll enjoy this book. Such a charming and beautiful but also heartbreaking book. So if you like all of those things, I definitely recommend this one. Whilst we're on the topic of World War II, my next book is the Guernsey Literary and Potato Peel Pie Society by Mary Ann Schaffer and Annie Barrows. And I felt this is a slightly more popular book on this list, and it is one of my favourites. Along with Laura's books, it's probably my favourite book as well on this list. And this is a book that took me by surprise, and most people, I feel like, should know what this book is about. It's kind of a bit more intricate, but I will try and describe it. So it's basically about our main character called Juliet, and she is a writer and a reporter, and one day she gets a letter from this man in Guernsey, and this is set post World War II, by the way. She gets a letter from a man in Guernsey and they basically strike up a relationship and they start writing to each other, and she gets to hear about all the stories of the people who lived and still live on Guernsey during the Nazi occupation as the Nazis invaded Guernsey during World War II. So she gets to kind of learn about the stories and then she gets to go there and meet them, and this book is just so utterly charming. It is very heartbreaking at times when you hear about some of the stories of the things that these people went through, but oh my goodness, it did put a smile on my face. I love the characters. This is written in letter format as well, which is really interesting. And I love Juliet as a main character. I think she is amazing. She's just, like, she has to be one of my favourite historical, like, characters. Can't think of the name of it. She's just such a great character. I really enjoy her. I think she's very charismatic and very smart. And it's just such a joy, this book, honestly. Joy is the word when I think of this book, even though obviously it's very heartbreaking because of some of the stories and some of the things that have happened to these people during World War II. But honestly, I'm not going to say any more because I feel like this is quite a popular book. But again, if you love a historical fiction, World War II or like post-World War II, honestly, get this one. It will make you smile, it will make you sad, but it's just such a joyous book all around. Next up we have Medensky Square by Eva Ibbotson. And I've heard quite a bit about Eva Ibbotson because I know Laura Wood, I know I keep referencing her a lot in this video, but I know she really enjoys these books along with Lucy Powery, and based on their recommendations I decided to pick them up. And this one specifically, she has a bunch of books, but this one specifically is set in 1910 and follows a year in the life of a dressmaker called Suzanne, and it's just a diary that she keeps about everything about her life, like the normalities, the highs, the lows, everything about this little square in Vienna that she has her shop in. So it's basically, like I said, it's a year in the life book, and it is a book that I found a bit confusing at first. I found the writing a little bit confusing, and also because there's so many characters in this book that you try to kind of grapple who they are, because Suzanne is obviously recording all the people that she knows in this square. Suzanne is a really lovely character. I think she's very forward-thinking and headstrong and very ambitious to say she is a woman in the 1910s, where again she is expected to be a housewife, but she has her own shop and she does very well for herself. And it's just about the normalities. I think it's a little quote in here, and which is why she's reading this book, why she's writing this book. And it says, "I shall remember my tragedies, my follies and my joys. Everyone remembers those. But what of the ordinary things, the little happenings? What of the dailiness? Who has a care for that?" So it's just like a daily year in the life, normalities, ups and downs, all that sort of thing. And very charming once you get into it. I had to kind of take my moment to kind of get into this book and get used to the writing style. But once I was in, I very much enjoyed it. So if you kind of like those kind of like year in the life or kind of like diary style sort of books, I really think you will enjoy this. I will like to check more of Eva Ibbetson's work out in the future. Like I said, she has quite a few books out, but I did definitely enjoy this one. And the last author that I have 2 books from her, and of course I had to mention Taylor Jenkins Reid, and she has written some fantastic books. These are the 2 that I have read so far from her, which is The 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo and Daisy Jones and the Six. And these are her 2 historical fiction novels. I know she has Malibu Rising, which is her latest novel, which I have not read, but these are wonderful. I really enjoyed these. Out of my 2, I really enjoyed both of them. Evelyn Hugo is just slightly up there as being slightly more my favourite. These are very intricate stories and they are so well crafted, and you really come to love the characters. Even though there are so many imperfections in these characters, you really learn to enjoy them. And obviously they're very popular, so I won't go over them too much, but in case you don't know, 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo is about a film star called Evelyn Hugo, where basically she hires a reporter to do an interview so she can write a biography about Evelyn's life. And it's basically about Evelyn's life, her 7 husbands, all that sort of thing, and it's set kind of from, I think, like the 1920s onwards, maybe, roughly about that time. And it's very like Hollywood-esque, and I love this book, really adored it. And then Daisy Jones and the Six is about a band called Daisy Jones and the Six, and it is about their rise to fame and also why they suddenly broke up. And this is in interview format, this is in prose format. These books are so engaging and you really learn to love the craft of these books and the main characters in these books as well. Like I said, they're incredibly imperfect, but they're also so utterly lovable, these characters. And I honestly, these are some of the best written books I've probably ever read. They are so wonderful. I'm not going to talk about them anymore now because obviously they are so popular, but they had to go on this list. And I don't know if I'm going to read Taylor's latest read, but I know a lot of you will have heard of these reads, and if you haven't picked them up yet, I still highly recommend that you do. If you love like 1970s like rock and roll like vibes, you will love this book. If you are looking for like the Hollywood, like old-fashioned Hollywood, I think you will adore this book. And yeah, I think Taylor has definitely found her niche in the world of writing, and I cannot wait to see what all the other books that she comes out with in the future. Maybe I'll get to Malibu Rising. Let me know if you think I should read it or not, because I'm kind of on the fence about it at the moment, but I definitely enjoyed these 2 and very much looking forward to seeing all the other books that she comes out with in the future. So those are all the books that I have in this video. It has actually been quite a while since I've read quite a lot of these books, so I might have been a bit rusty on describing what they're about, but I hope you guys enjoyed these books and hearing about them. And if you would like to pick any of them up, or if you are interested or intrigued by any of them, let me know in the comments down below, because I would love to know. And also, if you have any more recommendations for historical fiction books, please leave them in the comments as well, so you can share them with myself and other people, because I am always looking for more recommendations. I haven't read a historical fiction book in a while, so I would love to pick another one up. But thank you so much for watching, and I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did like this video, I would really appreciate it if you could give it a thumbs up, as it really does help me out. And if you'd like to see more bookish videos from me, then you can click that subscribe button and make sure that you hit that notification bell so you'll be noted every time that I post a new video. As always, I will leave links to my social media along with the links to my Goodreads in the description down below for you guys if you'd like to see more bookish content that you will not find on this channel. But thank you guys so much for watching. I appreciate you so much, and I will see you again very soon. Bye!